Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dungeon Learner's Guide. Today we've got another of our daily Pride Month decks. This is deck number 8 and it's titled Platonic Life Partners. And if you've missed the last few episodes, what we're doing is building a commander deck for Magic the Gathering using 2 non-partner commanders, working on a budget of $100 or less, and using this as a way to celebrate the diversity of the LGBTQ+ community for all of June. And especially doing so through the medium of magic. So today, our deck is designed to celebrate those who maybe aren't looking for a little bit of romance in their life, but they still want to have that person that they still kind of lean on and live their life with, those platonic life partners. And so, in honor of life partners, we have Shauna, Purifying Blade, and Vona, Butcher of Magan. So Shauna is a green, white, blue for a 3/3 legendary creature human warrior. She has lifelink, and at the beginning of your end step, you may pay X. If you do, draw X cards, but X can't be greater than the amount of life you gained this turn. And her partner today is Vona, Butcher of Magan, which is 3 white-black for a 4/4 legendary creature vampire knight. She has vigilance, lifelink, and you can tap her to pay 7 life and destroy target non-land permanent, but you can only activate it during your turn. So as you may have picked up already, if those are our commanders, then our first major theme for today is going to be life gain. And a good example of that is Soul Warden, which is 1 white mana for a 1/1 human cleric. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. This is a great way to make sure we always have Shauna drawing cards, and a great way to make sure that we always have the life to pay for Vona's destroy ability, kind of putting us in a position where we can gain a bunch of life and then pay it if we need to in order to get some other side effects. And Soul Warden especially is very powerful because you'll notice that she triggers when any creature enters the battlefield, not just ours. So it's a great way to kind of maintain a higher life total so that even if people are attacking us, we're probably still staying in the positives. Moving on to our second theme of the deck, this one is of course a Johnny's Pride Mate effects. I don't know if there's a better term for it, but essentially creatures that get bigger and get +1/+1 counters whenever we gain life. And this is kind of a callback to a Johnny's Pride Mate, which is also in the deck, but I do specifically want to highlight Twin Blade Paladin as probably the best version of this effect, because it is 3 and a white for a 3/3 human knight. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, and as long as you have 25 or more life, this creature has double strike. Now, you may notice 25 or more life is under this starting life total of 40 in Commander, so this comes down as a 4 mana 3/3 with double strike that is pretty much only going to get bigger every single time we gain life. The other thing to point out about this is that it's every time we gain life, not just if you would gain 1 or more life. So essentially, if Soul Warden is on the battlefield and an opponent makes, say, 10 tokens, each of those tokens is going to individually trigger Soul Warden. So yes, we will gain 10 life, but we actually gain 10 different instances of 1 life, meaning that Twin Blade Paladin will get 10 +1/+1 counters. And that is incredibly powerful when we have a pretty large portion of our deck dedicated to effects like this. That, though, is only theme number 2, so moving on to theme number 3 today, we have kind of a drain effect for life gain. Again, I'm not sure if there's a better term for this, but essentially whenever we gain life, we now force our opponents to lose that much life. One of the best examples of this is Dina Soul Steeper, which is a black and a green for a 1/3 legendary creature Dryad Druid. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life, and you can pay 1 and sacrifice another creature, and Dina gets +X/+0 until the end of turn, where X is the sacrificed creature's power. Dina is very powerful because, just like we talked about with Twin Blade Paladin and Soul Warden, gaining we'll say 10 separate instances of life, each one will trigger Dina separately, which means that we could gain the 10 life from Soul Warden, and then each opponent will lose 10 life. However, if you gain 10 life all at once, not from 10 different triggers, but from one trigger, each opponent only loses 1 life. So that's why it's very important that a lot of our life gain effects are individually focused in order to give us those extra benefits from Dina and from Twinblade Paladin. Anyway though, those are all of our themes for today, and so let's move on to our key cards. And these are cards that really synergize with what we're trying to do, and in some cases can be value engines or win conditions all on their own. So the very first key card I want to highlight is going to be Vito, Thorn of the Dusk Rose. And Vito is 2 and a black for a 1/3 legendary creature vampire cleric. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life, and you can spend 3 black to give creatures you control lifelink until the end of turn. This is similar to Dina in the sense that whenever we gain life, an opponent would lose life, but it's also different because Dina drains every single opponent for 1. Vito only drains 1 opponent, but it's for the amount of life you gained. So if you do gain that 10 life in one big burst, then target opponent will lose 10 life, whereas Dina would just make each opponent lose 1. Plus, Vito has the added benefit of being able to give your creatures lifelink, and that is another unique situation because each creature dealing damage with lifelink is going to trigger separately, so each of those is a separate trigger of losing life with Vito that can then be pointed at a different opponent. So that is something to be aware of with Vito. I think it's a very powerful commander, but in this deck, it's obviously not our commander, so it plays a vital role in acting as a support piece for our commanders. Moving on to our second key card, this one is Drogskull Reaver. And Drogskull Reaver, probably one of the best card draw engines in our deck, is 5 white-blue, so a massive 7 mana, for a 3/5 spirit with flying, double strike, lifelink, and whenever you gain life, draw a card. So if we have no other cards in play and we attack someone with the Reaver, it'll hit them twice because of double strike, we will gain 6 life and we will draw 2 cards. However, if we have something like Soul Warden, to go back to that, and we have those 10 different instances of life gain, we will just draw 10 cards because each instance of life gain will trigger it separately. Now, with that being said, it is very important to note that with the Reaver, the card draw is not a May ability. Whenever you gain life, you have to draw a card. So there is a world where you accidentally deck yourself and draw too many cards with this. So that's something to be aware of if you're putting this together. Moving on to our final key card, this one is Righteous Valkyrie, probably one of the best finishers in the deck. This is 2 and a white for a 2/4 Angel Cleric. It's got flying, and whenever another Angel or Cleric enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness, and as long as you have at least 7 life more than your starting life total, creatures you control get +2/+2. Now, in a one-on-one competitive format, that means you would only need 27 life. However, in Commander, that means you need 47 life, which is a little bit harder to come by, but I think that we have enough life gain that that's not the end of the world. And being able to give all of our creatures +2/+2 is a tremendous boost in power that can really push us across the finish line and help us get a win. So those are all of our key cards for today, and the next thing we're going to do is take a look at some cool interactions. These are cards that really synergize with each other, and in a lot of cases are just fun cards that I like to highlight because I think they deserve a shout out. So our first pair of cards to talk about is Essence Warden and Amalia Benavides Aguirre. So Essence Warden is 1 green for a 1/1 Elf Shaman. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. You may notice that text is identical to Soul Warden, which we've talked about earlier, and we also have a third card in the deck that does the exact same thing, so it's very worth it to have these effects. One of the best cards that we can have in play with Essence Warden gaining us so much life, though, is Amalia at a white and a black for a 2/2 legendary creature vampire scout. She has Ward, pay 3 life, and whenever you gain life, Amalia explores. Then, destroy all other creatures if her power is exactly 20. Now, that's obviously going to be very difficult to achieve. 20 power is quite high, but again, remember that Essence Warden and Soul Warden and any other card like it trigger every single time a different creature enters the battlefield, which is going to give us a ton of life because we can explore every single time, and then boost up Amalia's power. And she also acts as a board wipe because our opponents are probably going to try to prevent us from exploring with Amalia. They don't want us to hit that 20 to board wipe, so they might stop playing creatures, they might stop playing into our life gain effects, and then even if they can't quite stop us, Amalia doesn't destroy herself. It destroys all other creatures, meaning we get to basically have a 20 power creature that can just start smacking people kind of out of nowhere. And so that is a very powerful combination of cards and definitely worth making a cool interaction for it. Moving on to our second cool interaction, this one is Nykthos Paragon and Angelic Chorus. So Nykthos Paragon is 4 white for a 4/6 enchantment creature human soldier. Whenever you gain life, you may put that many +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. Do this only once each turn. Then we have Angelic Chorus, which is 3 white for an enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to its toughness. So if we have a board full of creatures and we have Angelic Chorus and we cast the Nykthos Paragon, it is going to enter. Angelic Chorus is going to see that it has 6 toughness. We will gain 6 life. Nykthos Paragon will see us gain 6 life, and we'll put 6 +1/+1 counters on every single creature we control. Then from every turn here on out, whenever any creature enters, we put that many counters on each creature we control, which is equal to its toughness because we're going to gain that much life. This is another way to just very quickly end games if we can keep getting creatures with high toughness, which, considering we're a life gain deck, is actually pretty common. A lot of life gain cards have a higher toughness than they do power, which is worth noting. So that, though, brings us to the end of our cool interactions, and the very final piece of this deck tech is to take a look at the price of the deck, and that is $74.41, with the most expensive card in the deck being Blossoming Bog Beast at $5.92. Now, a lot of times when we look at these sorts of decks and when we talk about the budget, they tend to have one very expensive card and then everything else is kind of medium to low. But the unique thing about this deck is that we have quite a few cards between $2 and $5 because they all play a very important role in life gain decks. So we don't really have one card that stands out above the rest, but instead we've kind of got a lot sort of in the middle. And Blossoming Bog Beast just happens to be at the top of that price curve, but I do think it's very worth including, because it's 4 and a green for a 3/3 beast. Whenever it attacks, you gain 2 life, then creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X until the end of turn, where X is the amount of life you gained this turn. Notably, you don't have to gain a ton of life for this to become a relevant ability. Even just attacking having gained no other life, you gain 2 and then everything gets +2/+2. So if you can crank that up just a little bit, even say you've gained 5 total life including this 2 and everything gets +5/+5, that's pretty powerful when everything is also getting trample. This is another card that can very quickly end the game if you have the right setup for it, so that is why it's at the top of our price curve. That, though, is the end of our deck tech for today, so thank you all so much for joining me on this. We have officially made it past a week of doing these daily Pride Month decks, and I am having a ton of fun doing these. I really hope you are as well. If you're interested, please do check out our Patreon and right here on YouTube as a channel member, and if you're not interested in that, you can always just like the video and subscribe to the channel. That does help out quite a bit. And a massive thank you to our current patrons and channel members, as well as everyone who made it to this part of the video. So thank you all so much. I hope you have a wonderful Pride Month, and I will see you all on the other side of the Dungeon Learner's Guide.